Welcome back. Today is story time. I wanted to give you a story from Brother Premamoy. Actually, I wasn't able to meet Brother Premamoy. He died before my time, but I spent years and years with Brother Mitrananda in the ashram, in the Pachalan ashram. I was inundated with story after story about Brother Premamoy. In fact, he was collecting stories of how Brother Premamoy cheated death. He had, I think it was over 100 times. It was a crazy amount of crazy stories. While I no longer condone a monastic life, I no longer believe it's the best life for being a yogi. However, the stories of Brother Premamoy were some of my very favorite times in the ashram. So I want to share that with you. Brother Premamoy was actually a Yugoslavian prince, and his uncle was a vicar in the Franciscan order. And his uncle would come and sit at the dinner table, and all of them would switch from one language to the next around the dinner table. And so they all became multilingual. I think Brother Premamoy knew 11 languages. And as this young man grew up, he became very fond of mountain climbing. And in fact, he and his friends made many first ascents on various mountains, including the Alps. And in one of those journeys, they went up the side of the mountain and became stuck. The weather, it started to snow very violently. They couldn't see where they were going. They couldn't come back down the mountain. And so they camped out on the side of the mountain. And in the night, it became extremely cold. They hadn't brought a tent. They hadn't brought adequate jackets. They hadn't brought sleeping bags. All they had were the jackets that they wore as they came up the mountain. And it got so cold, and his friend, his fellow hiker, became more and more cold. And in the night, Brother Premamoy took off his jacket, took off his shirt, gave it to his friend so that his friend could survive. And he fully expected that he would freeze to death during the night. And in the night, as he became more and more cold, his breathing suddenly changed all of itself. It just came over him. It washed over him, and suddenly his breath was very different. And the breath that he did was a form of the fire breath. And as he practiced that breath, almost unconsciously, it wasn't a conscious volition. It was completely as if he was watching himself, as if he was watching it all take place. So as this happened, his whole body began to glow in warmth. And he spent the night practicing this breath. And in the morning, they got up and came down the mountain. And after they came down the mountain, they found out that another team had gone up with tents, had gone up with blankets, had gone up with everything that they needed for a storm. And yet they didn't survive. They froze to death just around the corner on the other side of the mountain. And Premamoy saved the life of his friend and his own life with this breathing. And so this is the breathing that I wanted to show to you today. And there's two forms I'd like to show you. And so we're going to start out with something very strong, and we're going to move into something a little more sublime. So the first breath, we're going to breathe in and extend the stomach through the nose. And then breathe out very strongly. And I'm going to use the mouth to breathe out the out breath so you can really get a feeling for what we're doing here. So breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. So you can see that I'm really affecting the third chakra. And the third chakra holds fear, our fear. It is associated with the right amygdala, which is the center of doom. And so this amygdala projects into the body in the third chakra. And so we are affecting this fear very strongly. So we've all felt that cold pull of fear in the third chakra, right? When we become scared and suddenly, oh my God, our stomach gets really cold very fast, right? And so we are reversing that trend by very strongly activating this third center. And so what will happen after doing that breath for a while, you don't want to do it too long. It's a very short, hard breath, right? But the stomach will become warm, and then the whole abdomen will become warm, and then the whole body will begin to encapsulate a gentle warmth. And so that's what we're looking for in this, to feel a little bit of that warmth, at least in the stomach. So that's the first breath. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. And of course, we can transfer this to a nasal breath, because the nasal breath is always better for the yogi. It is much more economical for the body, and therefore much more healthful. So we're going to breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. So that's the first form of the fire breath. And the second form is we're going to reverse what seems the natural. So breathing in and extending the stomach is the natural way, and we're going to reverse that. So we're going to breathe in and suck the stomach in. So breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Now, as I'm showing you this, I'm watching my shoulders come up a little bit. When you're doing this breath, try and minimize any kind of rising of the clavicles. Any yogic breath, we want to minimize that. We don't want to breathe in and to cause tension up in the shoulders. But I'm trying to show you as best I can, and so I'm seeing my shoulders come up a little bit. Try and avoid that. All right, breathe in, breathe out. And I'm placing my hands here. Once you become comfortable with the breath, of course, you can put your hands down, transfer to a nasal breath, and now you're really cooking. So that's the more subtle form. Breathing in, breathing out. So breathing out naturally, breathing in, I'm sucking in the stomach, really punching that third center with my breath. And what this is allowing me to do, when we breathe out, the diaphragm goes up, and there's this extra pressure on the thoracic cavity. And that's what we want, because that extra pressure translates all the way to the back to the dorsal vagal nerve. And that stimulation, that deep stimulation of the dorsal vagal nerve, translates to the parasympathetic system, translates to the medulla, and then the medulla sends a signal to the heart to lower it down a little bit. And when that happens, the heart rate goes down just a little bit. And that will translate to the breath. The breath will elongate. And then with a longer breath, the heart again will lower just a little bit. And then the breath will elongate a little bit more. And so we're getting this reciprocal relationship between the breath and the heart, which is so amazing. And then just down the rabbit hole we go into peace and silence. And so when we breathe in, the diaphragm is going down. And so that pressure is off of the dorsal vagal nerve. So the yogi says, well, I'm just going to take my stomach and I'm going to push it in. And that's going to cause, with the stomach lock, this is a variation of the stomach lock, and that will cause another wave of pressure on the dorsal vagal nerve. So we have this pressure as we breathe out, and now we have a secondary pressure with the stomach lock breath. It's causing a second wave of pressure on the dorsal vagal nerve. So now we have 2 waves on the dorsal vagal nerve, this extra pressure on the thoracic cavity, which is translating to the dorsal vagal nerve, which is sending a signal to the medulla, which is gently slowing the heart, which is elongating the breath, which is again affecting the heart, which again is affecting the breath, and down the rabbit hole we go. So I hope you try these out. These are 2 versions of the fire breath. So one is breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Now with the nasal breath, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And finally, breathing in with the stomach going in. So breathing in, breathing out, Breathing in, breathing out. And see how this short circuits your fear center. And see how that translates into a gentle heat in the stomach, then a gentle heat in the entire abdomen, and then a gentle heat throughout the whole body. Just try that a little bit. Not too much, just a little bit. And this really gives us a window into really understanding the chakras and how they work. What is yoga doing on the chakras? And it's a short circuiting. And that short circuiting causes the chakra to feel clean. And the byproduct that we get from the third chakra is heat, which is why it's called the fire breath. So I hope you loved this. I hope it was very fascinating. I hope it was very valuable. If it was, hit that bell so I can see you guys around next time.